Good morning everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm back working with my project that is part of Susanna's project, the calendar, and Susanna's channel is Vintage Blend Studios. So the month of June was the teapot and teacup. So I decided I would just do a classic slow stitch piece with lots of bits and pieces added as I slowly build up the image, and it's completed. I'm really happy with it. If you recall from the last video, I cut out these machine embroidered elements from a tablecloth, a very small little tablecloth. It's probably something you'd lay over a bigger tablecloth. It was quite small, and then fussy cut them out, stitched them into position, and then went around the raw edge. And when I mean stitched into position, that's the little tacking stitch. Then I went around the edge of them with a overcast stitch. You could use blanket stitch, but I just did an overcast stitch or a whip stitch. And then to help them disappear a little into the background, I mentioned in the last video that I was considering doing seed stitch, which I did. The reason I did it is, see how this is very flat here, like it's real obvious it's a feature. That look was also with the flowers, and I wanted them to blend a little bit more with the background. So if you look into there, you can see all of the little stitches, and it's just, I guess, another detail you can use on your pieces. So really happy with the result. I patched in a little bit of blue here and continued the running stitch through, so that now looks like it's a bigger piece. So really happy with that. You'd have to really look to notice that unless you were told. And I like how the blue is here and the blue is up on the opposite corner. So it sort of feels like there may have been a big piece of blue fabric right at the very beginning. So I sort of feel like the piece is a little bit anchored. What else did I do? I think that was about it. I can still see this was a little bit of hanky overlaid on a corner of another tablecloth, and I can still see where the hanky didn't quite make it, and I'm okay with that. When I was creating it, I thought I would want this lower, and then it sort of covered this, and just, yeah. But I'm okay with it now because it sort of tells a story. If you have a little look, you can see where the one element meets the other, and you can see underneath. So I like that, because I would say in the years to come, I'm going to forget a lot of the processes. And if I take a moment and actually look at this piece, I'll remember that there were two elements here. So I sort of don't mind the fact that I have little stories within it that I might discover one day. So that's the piece. I'm calling it finished, and I didn't know what I was going to do today, because really all there is to do is to stitch it into my journal. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and this journal will be completed. Like, oh my gosh. So this started with the Roxy girls when we were doing a theme, a prompt, a bird, a butterfly. There was just random prompts that we then went off and stitched a page, and I did 2 journals and I had spare pages. So this one has sort of become somewhere to put future pieces, and I've loved it. So I like the idea of having sort of incomplete journals around that I can sort of pop into with a random piece if, you know, I want to. So that one was, when's Valentine's Day? That'd be February. So this is Susanna's heart, the heart. So it found its way into here. This is when I was like exploring mushrooms and what you can do with shapes to create different mushrooms. So a collage, and because it's a flip out, it gives you that landscape size. Someone asked me, well, there's been many questions about the journal. So I thought, well, I might just work my way to the back, have a bit of a chat about making a journal, and then in the coming videos, I'll need to make another one. So stay tuned for that. Firstly, this is an old recipe book. Okay, so it gives me a nice big size. The size of this is, let me measure it. And I really like something a little bit bigger because it gives me room to create pieces. So the recipe book, 20 centimetres or 8 inches by 10.5 or 26 centimetres. So if you're out and about looking at old books in thrift stores and you go to the recipe book department, have a look for something that's about 8 by 10.5. I think you'll find that it's just a nice space to stitch a image into, or a prompt, or whatever you're going to do. Just gives you a bit of room. What was I going to say next? Oh, someone asked me, how was all of this attached? If it's going on to a hard cover, of course you cannot get a needle in behind, and the cover might be made 6 months later. So this is glued using the glue stick that I'm always picking up. This is just a student glue stick. I've tested a few. It's the one I like, and the main reason I like it is not only does it dry and adhere, but it goes on blue. So I can see where my glue is and not. So I find that really good. That way I can get a nice liberal coating, and it'll adhere. So this one, when completed, was attached with the glue. This flip out, the blank calico or muslin, that is the foundation of the whole book, was glued here and then just left to flap a little. When I stitched the mushrooms, it was glued here, and then a little piece of cordage or ribbon is put in place and stitched here. So if you can stitch it, stitch it. If you have to glue it, you have to glue it, depending on where it goes in your journal. So that's pretty much my guide. Then roll forward a year later, and February comes along, and I created this piece, and of course it was blank, and it got stitched in because I was able to get the needle and thread through. So that's a bit of an overview of how this journal is sort of being built as it goes. Now, these spine tabs are caught within the making of the journal on day one, and they are wedged and glued either under things or within, just sitting there waiting for this piece to go on top. But they are glued, 2 pieces of fabric stitched together but left so that they can open. Does that make sense? That won't make sense. Let me get some fabric here. So let's assume that this is a tab that I'm making. And it's going to be a very, very big journal because of the width, but let me just cut this. Gosh, I've gone so off track. Those of you who know how to do all this, just get stitching and just ignore me for a moment. For the newbies, so I've got 2 pieces of fabric. I'm going to stitch in between my fingers something decorative. It could be running stitch, it could be putting on some lace, buttons, and you can see all of these little adornments here. Once you've got your piece, let's pretend, where's the pin? Let's pretend that between the 2 pins is all the pretty stitching. You can do it there or there, front and back, whatever you want. Now this is left open, so that is glued onto the recipe book, 1, 2, and 3. And then when you create your piece in the future, that goes on. So the book is then capturing that spine. Now, there were 2. This guy, he is under here. So basically, let's pretend now that this is the recipe book cover. It slides there, glued down, and then I repeat it. So now I have this decorative spine, and this side, which also opens, catches the other cover at the rear of the book. Does that make sense? Now, there are videos that I've done showing the making of journal covers. So go and have a little look through my playlist and you'll see the how-to videos. But I'll be making another one because I've filled it. We're full. Once I've created my cover, which is just plain with the spine element, just still very much not containing any embroideries, I then go through and I put some calico pages in. You can see the calico here. So let's pretend now that this is just a plain piece of calico. If I fold it in half, find the middle, stitch it into that tab spine, I've now got a flapping page. Now I can come along and put a decorative piece here and a decorative piece here or here and here. I can even bring it together and just have 2 decorative pieces, or I could have 4. These I call a signature, and in this journal I've got 1 which holds 4 stitcheries, 2 which holds another 4, and then I'm to the rear of the book and I've done a flip out like I did on the front of the book, and that's it. So there's 8 stitcheries internally, 2 big ones that are in under the flip out, and then another 2 here and here. So that's a lot of work. And then, of course, one of them eventually ends up on the cover. So that's the principle of my books. I find that that's plenty. You can see that the spine is nice and taut. I'm not a fan of the alligator mouth. I used to have journals that were just bulging open and that, but I've sort of, when it comes to my embroidery, I try not to do that because you want your journal, I think, to sit nicely on a shelf. Well, I do. I keep them all on like a bookshelf. So to have an alligator in amongst it, it's just putting pressure on the spine. So I try and keep myself under control. So for a recipe book of this size, I tend to follow a similar sort of theory of measurements. Now the spine on this guy, just in case someone wants to have a go at making themselves one, 7 centimetres, and that is, just get it taut, 2.5 inches. You could go to 3 if you wanted to, especially if you're going to put lots of Suffolk puffs and yo-yos, same thing, beads. You know, if you heavily embellish your work, you might want to go to 3 just to make sure it all fits. Now, I think my piece is sitting in there, so that's good. It's in. If I was going to do another signature, so there's only 2 in this, I'd probably go to 3.5. And that would give space for that next signature, plus all the adornments that would go onto the piece. Okay, so let's get our final piece in. I think the Roxy girls gave us a prompt butterfly. So I had these scrappy butterflies that I'd made with bits and pieces attached to them. So butterfly found a home, scrappy heart, I think was a prompt as well from the girls. I can't remember now. This was a needle book kit I bought on Anne Brooks' website just after COVID. So I had it for a while. I just so enjoyed looking at the different fabrics that she had access to in the UK. And then I thought, well, I'm never going to make it into a needle book. So I ended up making it into a page and then did a intense page and a more neutral page. And that became, you know, a bit of a spread within the book. This was the pears prompt, the fruit bowl that Susanna had within her Vintage Blend Studio calendar prompt. This one here, I don't think it was anything in particular. I think it was actually my birthday, and my friend dropped over a bunch of flowers, and this was the ribbon that was around the bunch of flowers. So that afternoon I created this piece and I used a little bit of the ribbon from the flowers. I think that's how that went together. Yeah, pretty sure it did. This one I did down in Ballarat when I was sitting around with Susanna, and we were just chatting and stitching, waiting for the start of her retreat. So that one's got good memories. There's a bit of Roxy's and a bit of Susanna in this one, and of course Percy. I went on a cruise and I took this vintage peacock and attempted to reproduce him and embellish him and stitch him, and it gave me a great project to do while I was on the cruise ship. There's a video series to do with him. So Percy's little piece just stays in there. It's a nice safe space for him. It's good because he's not going to get lost in the abyss that is my craft room. So I might actually pull him out, because the final piece, which is going here. So to stitch in a panel that you've completed, it's pretty simple. I always double check that it's the right size, because the last thing you want is your piece intruding on the piece prior or the piece underneath it. So I always make sure it's sitting right. There's a little bit of pink showing through at the top of Percy, but I'm okay with it. You can't even see what I'm doing. I'm just jiggling him to make sure it's sitting right. So stitching it in is pretty simple. I pin it and then with just some thread, stitch him in. And like I said before, if you can stitch it, stitch it. If you can't, it means you need to bring out the glue stick. And it's probably because you're going onto a hard surface, which is probably the front cover, the inside cover, potentially. So I'm just going to add a couple pins down the bottom here. Then I thought what I might do to finish my journal off is I'd like some tabs. So as soon as I get this stitched, I'll turn my camera. I have my 2 boxes here. I've got my scraps and my lacy scraps, and I'm going to go through the journal and see if I can create some tabs for the sides of the page that complement the pages that they are with, which can be a challenge too. So let's get stitching. Get my needle and thread sorted here. So I hope you're all well. I'm sure you are. If not, I hope you get well soon. I hope you're just okay and getting through whatever you need to get through. Gosh, I've just gone philosophical. My goodness, I've just turned into a counsellor. Goodness me. I'm good. Everyone around me seems good. Dad seems good. Staying out of trouble is what we're all just trying to do. I'm looking forward to making a new journal. This recipe book is a Mexican recipe book, and there were 3 of them on the shelf at the op store when I bought it. And actually, no, I didn't get these at an op shop. I was at a bookstore in Brisbane. That's right. Gosh, it's been a couple of years. And it was like a Angus and Roberts bookstore. It's a brand here in Australia. I don't want to see any pink, so I need to make sure that that's hidden. Percy doesn't need any pink around him. Yeah, and they have those bins at the front of the store that have bargains in them. So I was just sort of running my eyes through there, and there was these Mexican cookbooks, and they sold in their time for about $40, and they were reduced to $5. And I just liked the size of them. So I grabbed 3 at the time, and I thought, well, they are a great size. I'm going to make my Roxy Journal of Stitchery, my journal, out of one of those books. And having grabbed 3, I've now got 3 stitchery journals holding all my pieces. So if you do have an opportunity to grab the same size, I'd highly recommend it, because then when they're sitting on your shelf, you've got a certain size, and they sort of look great. The other book that I've used in the past for stitcheries, and I had one for the Nikki Franklin stitcheries that I was doing, and I've also got one that whenever I feel inspired to do a Jennifer Clouston style stitchery, it's where those little stitcheries go. So that size book is a Reader's Digest, which is a great little size if you're just doing a little project, and those books are very easy to come by. And the same principle in construction: take out the spine, rebuild it by covering the cover and the front and back with fabric, a neutral I tend to go for, and then one day there'll be a decorative piece be attached to the front cover. The Jennifer Clouston one with the Reader's Digest, I know there's a video of me making that as well. So, and I think the Nikki Franklin one as well, I did a video. I think I've only really made 3 journals for stitcheries on my channel, because I was sort of making them prior to having a YouTube channel, because I was in the background stitching away with the Roxy Pro girls, the Roxy Creation girls, and yeah, it was then I started my channel and needed to make more journals. So I think there's only 3 videos out there, so I will film the making of my next big journal, which is the cookbook one. So as for stitching, I've done this a few times. I'm sliding my needle forward, but then going through and coming straight back up on the other side, so that I don't have the stitches showing. So you just take your time. Now, it's looking good. So once again, slide through so I don't see the stitch, and then go through, come back where I was, slide through, just double check it's seated right. Yep. It's a bit fiddly, but just take your time. And if you find that you can see your work on the other side and you don't want to, at this stage you can slide in lace, you can slide in little bits to pop out of it. Is that sitting right? Yep. Yep. So you can sort of embellish your journal a little bit at this stage as well, which is a bit of fun. You can add more, more. Like there is a little bit of this one showing, but it's at the bottom, so I don't really want lace coming out at the bottom of the journal. And I'm okay with it because I really wanted to disguise the fact that there's a pink, pop of pink here that's going to be showing around on Percy's side. So I've pulled it down a little bit. But I think it'll be fine. If this was the top edge of the book, I'd be really quick to add some lace or something that suited both images. But it's not. It's where the book would sit on the shelf, and it's still within the confines of the cover, so I'm okay with that. It's tucked down a little bit so that this pink edge is not blasting around onto Percy's side. Now I'm just going to work down this spine, but it's a bit awkward coming from my left up. So I'm going to end it off because I'm right-handed, and I'm going to start here and work that way. Otherwise I'm sort of coming back the wrong way. reasonably quick. Doesn't take too long to get your pieces in. Come here, little needle. I'm using a real thin milliner's needle because it's nice and long and it's thin. It does have a small eye, so I tend to now tie my cotton off to the needle just so that it doesn't unthread all the time. Okay, so I might pick up here. I could start here and work that corner, but I think I want to anchor here first, just to make sure it's seated correctly. Now I can actually just catch the fabric below. I don't need to go right through to Percy. I could, but for ease, I'm just slip stitching it onto, see how I can see, there's my folded fabric from the blank page that these are all being attached to. I can actually slip stitch that through there relatively easily. So, slightly different technique happening now. I think my first journal I made was with Anne Brooks when she did Sew for the Soul. That was my first fabric journal. And I was making journals for friends and family, and I just couldn't keep up with the orders. And I'm starting to get it a little bit burnt out. And my journals were usually based on Stamperia papers. They're just beautiful. There's so many beautiful, beautiful papers. But it sort of felt like it was a little bit hit, repeat, same techniques. Then I found Anne and her Sew for the Soul. So that sort of gave me a break from journals for a little bit. And finding Anne led me to Rachel's channel. And Rachel's take on journals was just so more liberatingly free. So I started getting back into journal making a little bit more creatively, instead of just producing a product based on a Stamperia pack of papers. And that then, with that going on, as well as Sew for the Soul, then one day Rachel showed her friendship quilt, I think it's called, or a friendship panel of Jessie Chorley's, and that was it. I was like, between Anne Brooks and her organic stitching and Rachel showing me a theme to it other than just organically placing fabrics down and stitching, that was it. That just blew my mind that I could potentially be stitching anything on any size, but loose and free like Anne. So all those years of cross stitch, needle turn applique, embroidery, fancy work, you name it. And then along came Anne and her 52 tags. Well, that was it. So 52 weeks, 52 tags and a different technique. And that really opened up fabric collaging, adding stitch, adding embellishments. Those little tags built techniques for me. So if you haven't done that and you're new, I'd highly recommend you go to Anne Brooks' channel and find that series and work your way through it, because you're working in a little space. Anne gives you the prompt and then away you go, and you will soon, very quickly, find your groove of what style of slow stitch you want to do, whether it's minimal like Anne's work and work on design elements through that angle, or you want to be more like mine, where I build up the image from random morsels. That's where I feel I fall. Collaging. And then if you can make something out of your piece, great. If you can't, don't stress. Pop it in a journal and move on to the next piece. So when someone says to you, what are you going to do with all these pieces? It doesn't matter. It's all about the journey of creating the piece. I've given up on that question when people say to me, what are you going to do with all these? Oh, nothing. They'll just, I guess, one day end up in, landfill. And that's fine. Gee, that's crooked. Oh, what have I done here? Yappering away. I don't think my piece was real square to start with, but that's okay. I think the page is crooked. No, I think my piece is crooked. See, it's a little bit crooked here. That's okay. Don't stress about it. If it worries you, you can always pull it out and start it again. And that's the great thing about this scenario of putting them into a journal. Let's say you decide to frame one of these pieces. They're just stitched in with tiny little stitches. You can easily snip them, take the piece out, frame it, gift it, put it into a show, an exhibition, the local show, and then just stitch it back into the journal if the piece comes back. At least they're safe, they're all in one location, and they're accessible if you need them. There we go. Somehow I haven't caught that page below. Let me just put a couple, oh my goodness. Now I've done a stitch that goes over the edge of the page and not through. I started thinking about what I was going to do next, and I haven't even finished what I'm doing here. Concentrate, girl. Okay. Right. All right, I'm probably off camera. Here I am. I'm just stitching down the bottom corner here. Just let me get it done and then we can move on. Okay. Alrighty, so what I want to do now, let's get to some fun stuff, is have a look through and see if we can put some tabs that suit both sides of it. So goodness me. This one's tricky because there's a flower here. So I would be covering that up. I don't think I can put a tab there. Well, that was a thought that just didn't happen. I could put it here, but no, I can't. It's going to interfere with that image too much. It would work this side. Wouldn't really matter. But I don't like that idea of covering that. So, all right, scrap that idea. Look, the lace has come away here. All right, we're going to do a repair job. That'd be probably because of hands pulling there. Hence the tab is a good idea. So there we go. We were doing tabs. Now we're just doing some maintenance. Let me put Percy away too before he gets damaged. He's an old boy. There you go, Percy. In you go. Done. Okay. A little bit of maintenance. So if I was to do a tab of fabric, that'd be just getting myself a base fabric like the calico, embellishing it with morsels. I can't believe I can't do it. I thought that was a genius idea when I sat down and I grabbed my scraps and I'm like, oh, I'm going to put some tabs. But most of my pieces look like they've got a decorative edge already, and to put a tab on would be to cover the said decorative edge. But I'll show you what I would do if I had normal edges that didn't have all this embellishment. Ow! Like this lace, for example. Or it's just not complementary. Let's have a think about it, but a little pale pink piece of linen would be nice. I don't know. I just spotted this little bit of linen here, and that would look good there. But we'll see. So, yeah, let's assume I was going to do tabs. Let's have a little look in the bucket of fabric. Have I got a pale? No, that's not bad. A little bit of fake ticking, as in modern stripes. I don't mind those little flowers. There's a yo-yo. Don't need a yo-yo. What can I... There's a butterfly. Fell out. Leave him. So if I was to do a tab, I would have a rectangular-ish shape. Out of just a scrap. And it would attach. Oh, I know how I could do it. Oh, I've got it. I was thinking the tab had to go on the side. Let me just get myself positioned here. It could go on the top. So let's assume that it sits there like that. So let's pin it. And then flip it over. How complementary is it to this piece? Just fine. Okay, so there you go, we figured it out. What I'd do then is having a look at it. Does it need any embellishment? What we might do, see, it's a little bit odd shaped, which I'm okay with, but maybe there's an opportunity to poke a little bit of fabric in there to make it feel a little scrappy. So that would sit in there like so and peek out the top. I don't think I'd want it peeking out the bottom. I think I do a lot of thinking, don't I? So that would just be there as a little extra morsel, which helps build up that look. I like that, and I like that. Now that little butterfly that just fell out, I wonder if we could work him into there. I'm thinking we could. And if that pink came out a little bit, or, oh, I know, we're going to ruche it like that. Make it a little bit more organic. And I wonder if we could pop a little bit of lace in there too, just to soften it. That there would work because it's similar colours to all the pieces. All right, so needle and thread, where are you? So what I'm going to do is at the moment just stitch this little cluster like that. little bouquet of bits. What am I doing? Needle and thread's not threaded. Come on, girl, move it along. So not every page has to have a tab, but it might be a nice little morsel of something you can add. Actually, that butterfly is genius, if I say so. Mate, it just fell out of the thing. Isn't there a butterfly somewhere else of him? Yeah, here. Okay. So we've got a theme going through the journal. Gee, anyone had thought I'd planned this, but I haven't. If only I could think that far ahead. So we're just doing a little clump of fabric. Excuse me. Just a couple little stitches just to hold that. Then I'm going to add this little morsel with a couple little stitches as well. It's just going to peek out the top of the little scrappy bit of fabric. And that's purely because that wasn't even. So it's a way of disguising, I guess, the fact that the fabric was missing. So we're just going to have that peeking out of there. So I'm going to just stitch that on with some little itty bitty stitches, and then I will add the butterfly, I think. So that little butterfly must have been fussy cut out when I created that February heart piece. Okay, so that's attached to some degree. This little guy can now land there and catch himself on there with a couple little stitches. I'm stitching out where the yellow is because I've got white thread and he's got a black body. We need some little antlers, don't we? I might grab my threads and see if I can find a little bit of thread we can use for his antlers. Just bear with me, guys, as I grab this. And is there an opportunity where I can grab, say, a little bit of, oh, there's some gold thread. Could he be fancy and have little gold antennae? No. I'm thinking he just needs some chocolate little antlers. Are they antlers? No, they're not antlers, are they? They're what's the word? Antlers are on animals that have 4 feet, 4 hooves. Now what I might do is I want that to be a little rigid. So I'm just going to grab my cutting mat here that I tend to glue on. And I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on it. That, it's 2 strands. That will dry quite rigid. So if I now fold that to get the crease and let that dry, I will be able to put that in as his antennae, which I should be able to do once, because I can leave like a gap there and I can peel that forward, stitch it in there and then trim them so he will have rigid little feelers. So what I'm going to do is actually just end that off, and I will come back and finish his little body. But in the meantime, I want to do a little bit more decorative stitching on this piece. So I'm going to flip to some crochet cotton. Ooh, it looks like it's going to unravel the wrong way. That's a number 8 DMC pearl cotton. So you've got a couple options here. You could stitch it on the piece, as in fold it and then do your stitching through both sides. If you want it to look different each side, I would recommend doing it at this stage. We know where our fold is. So this side, I think all I want is maybe some X's, just to add a little interest, but not be as a running stitch around the perimeter. The running stitch around the perimeter I'm going to do on that. Now, if you wanted to stitch into the little rose, for example, you could stitch into these little flowers. So you could be quite heavily embellished on your little tabs as well, which would be super cool. But we're not going to go to that extent. We'll put another little X closer up to his little body here. So it's just a couple little stitches. So I will be using invisible stitches then to join the fold together, join the piece together, and also attach it. But you could do all of this with it closed off. Just depends on what look you're going for. And if you want the stitching to be completely different each side of your tab, well then you'd have to construct it like I am here, open and flat. So now the other side, I'm thinking of doing a border of running stitch, maybe. Let's just get one line of running stitch in. Get a needle with a bigger eye so we're not here all day mucking around. It's like a postage stamp. I had a thought for a moment of actually doing the running stitch over the whole thing, so to have more of a quilted look, but I think I'll go with my first instinct of just doing a decorative little border around it so that the rose is really seen and not mushed into the background with a heap of running stitch over the top of it. But that would be gorgeous if you did a little bit of thread painting, like stitching with thread. Into the little petals, but not today. It's ironic that the page that probably needs a tab the most, this one, due to the lace being pulled there, is not the one I'm doing. So there we go. You can see how these journals can just keep evolving. I've in the past stitched snippets of lace through the center here, onto there. That also looks really cool. All right, so we're back to the beginning and knot it off. I think we've got enough embellishment on this little tab. Whoops, scissors. Right, so close it up. Get my needle and thread. I should still be able to stitch those little antlers in there if they dried. Yes, good. So let's grab those. We'll try and do it all in one. Grab some thread. We might start at the antlers and work our way down until we get to that's already loaded with thread. Is it enough? Probably not. So I guess stay tuned for a video of me making another journal for any future stitcheries that may happen. I'm making this in advance a little bit, but maybe the next Roxy Journal of Stitchery end of year project that the girls, I haven't heard, what it is because, I'm a couple of weeks prior to their announcement. Maybe that is something that could go into a journal. I don't know. But you guys would be watching this knowing exactly what that is because it would have been announced. So who knows? So I'm just going to peel my little butterfly back. I'm going to slide in his little antennae. And then I'll spread that open in a moment. Catch the little stitch there. Can't believe I was calling them antlers. Tell you. It's hard to stitch, think, create, and be accurate. When it comes to names of flowers and bits and pieces of animals and I don't know. All right. That feels pretty good. Now I might just snip that off because it's going to get in my way. We don't need it. And then I'll just use the end of the needle to spread that back out because the glue is nearly dry but tacky and I don't want that to join. It's fiddly. Come on. Here we go. My big finger. That's better. Just hold it for a second in that position. There we go. All right. Now we can close our tab up. Where's my needle? So we'll come through the back and we're just going to stitch it. Come through the front. It's fiddly. Come through there, I think. Just don't want to bump my little bug, my little butterfly. Now I'm through, I can scooch forward a little, go through to the back. Come back through, but stay in the middle. Go forward. There we go. Now we've got it. We're away from all that decorative pieces there. Scooch forward a little bit. we need to attach this. So the fold, I need to access that because it's folded. How are we going to attach it? Yeah, here we go. We've got a problem, don't we? I need to snip that so that it straddles the page like so. There we go. We got it. She's on. So now I might pop a pin in it because I feel like I need... Oh, hang on a minute. I got it around the wrong way. Oh my goodness. I didn't need to snip it. It was right. It was going this way. Seriously. But that's okay because it actually, I think I want it more there with the lace hanging out. So yeah, I did need to snip it. Gosh, talk about manufacturing on the fly. Let's just pin it and have it double check that it looks good, both sides. Yes, okay, we're good. I'm going to spin that around. It should have, what I should have done is snipped it right through, and I might do that. Get rid of that little fold. I should have snipped it right through, and then it had the raw edges and was sandwiched. So I got straight into adding embellishments. Okay, so let's assume it's snipped right through. Now I'm rejoining it all. With some little invisible stitches. And then in the process of the joining, I'm also attaching it to the actual journal. I'll need lots of stitches here because it'll be a pressure point for people when they grab your page and turn it. So when I get to the book, which I'm there now, I've got something quite strong to stitch into now. It was a bit flippy floppy out there, but we're good now. Here we go for time. Oh my goodness. Oh, come on. I tell you, when you're creating something from nothing, you really do need to think about the engineering of it all and solve problems as you go. It's great fun. And these types of projects, we don't get patterns, do we? We're on the fly. We've got to figure it out. How are we going to needle and thread this? And because it's sewing machine knot, as in we're not using a sewing machine, we're using needle and thread. I'm loving it because it gives me time just to stop and think about the process as well. Where if we were on a sewing machine, we'd be whipping along and suddenly it's incorrect and you've got to unpick it, and it's frustrating. Where I love this needle and thread business. Okay, now we're coming up that side. For strength, I believe I need to stitch through that flower a little bit as well. I just think for longevity, I really need to make sure that little morsel is strong. As it is, the butterfly will probably be ripped off. And the excitement to flip a page. Yes, Fudgy, how are you this morning? We've woken him up. Yes, how rude. I love that little detail there. I'm hoping their fingers go there when they turn it, but I guess I could probably stitch the little butterfly down a little bit more, but I like how his little wings are three-dimensional. Oh, look, I can see my stitch. That was like a stitch that appeared on the opposite side. So I'm just going to stop, fix that. I think there's another one that's a bit too obvious, but that's okay. Whatever, we're moving on. We're not going to fiddle around. So I'm just working my way back down through the center of my tab just to get a little bit more stitching in here. Make sure it's nice and strong. I'm going to go sideways, go through and back. Then I might go up here at a bit of an angle, catch there. Feels better already. It's not that there was an air bubble in there, so by doing all this stitching, it's really securing. Now I might head to where all those little morsels were and just throw a few more stitches in there in case someone tugs at it. At least I know that they're nice and secure. So you can see how you can add to your journal even after you've had pieces added in. You know, your feature pieces stitched in. You can come back at some point and just embellish your journal some more. Oh, it's really, really cool. All right, finishing off. So what I might do, because I'm in the embellishing mood, and I know we've gone to the hour, but it shouldn't take me long, is I want to go through that scrap basket. So there's my little, and pick a couple little morsels out that can sit in here. And then that'll be my homework to stitch them in. So let's get the lacy bits. I don't think I want to use fabric because I don't want colour. I just want scrappy. Let me pull this forward. Let me just have that ooze a little bit. I'm just looking for little pieces that can lay in there as a feature. See, like this. Oh, there's a leaf. So, like that is what I'm looking for. And then I'll come through with stitches and stitch it in. Got enough to do the 3 of them? Yes, I do. Probably something I should have done way back, but you know how it is. You pop your piece in, then off you go and start something else. So this will just finish that off and add a little bit of interest in there. You could do different things. That's what I did on the outside of the spine, but I'm thinking that I want to do something but not interfere with these, so I'm keeping it very neutral. So there's a detail there, but it's not overpowering the pieces by bringing in something different. So I can stitch that in. My little tab is in position. Lovely. Got this. Don't know where I got that from. I think someone gifted it to me. Is there a piece that suits? Probably not. Nope. So once again, here we go. Don't have enough of that, so let's see if we can. Oh, here we go. Slightly different version, but that's all good. Let's put that one into there. Trim it off. They're all similar but different. That one into that tab, trim it. You can't see, but hang in there. I'll be back in a minute. There we go. We're back up into the shot. And the last one. Is there another one? Yes, there is. And it's a nice wide one, which is good. So we're going to pin you. Can I get 3 out of you? Yes. So you could add dingle dangles to your piece as well, your journal. With beads and charms and gosh, it's unlimited. There might be morsels left from one of the projects that you can create. You can create a piece. Just fits. That's great. And pin it and snip. That's it. So we've got a nice little lacy embellishment to go on all of the little tabs. Excellent. So get that back under control. I don't know where that leaf got to. Sort of feel like it works with this piece. But no, leave it be, girl, for goodness sakes. All right, guys. I'm going to toddle off and finish my, I love my little tab, finish my inserts onto those spine little spots. I'll then have a little look at all of the, excuse me, goodness me, have a look at maybe putting some more tabs on if, so one could go there, but anyway. I'll fiddle around, I'm sure. All right, guys, look after yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.